One of the most common mom questions I hear is, how do you get it all done? Now, I've been asked this, I ask this of other moms, and I think the answer is no one gets it all done, but here are a few tips that may help you get more done. If you're new here, I'm Rian, a Christ-following wife and a homeschool mom to 3 boys. Here we talk all things homeschool, and we will learn together how to use our roles as wife, mom, teacher, and homemaker in order to glorify God. So while homeschooling may be one of our bigger jobs and one of our more important jobs, it is by no means our only job. We have a marriage that we have to attend to. We have babies sometimes we have to care for. We have a house to keep clean and meals to be made and church and sports and all the different things. And so Wendy has helped us by putting together this collaboration of a bunch of homeschool moms coming together to share their best homeschool productivity tips. Because let's face it, we need all the help we can get, right? To save that time and that energy during homeschool so that we can also pour into all these other buckets. So Wendy is a very sweet and dear friend of mine. If you haven't checked out her channel, please do. She is full of all things productivity. So whether that be in your house, whether that be in your homeschool, whatever it is, she's got it covered for you. She also makes some great planners if you're looking for a planner for you or your children. And also check out the playlist down below. Like I said, there's gonna be a bunch of mamas down there that all have different tips. And so some are gonna help you, some are not, but you can kind of go through and see what they are and pick and choose what's gonna be beneficial to you. So my first tip for you is to try time blocking. So this one was very hard for me to embrace because I am a list person. I've mentioned it before, very type A, and I like to see this through to completion, then move to this, see it through to completion, then see this, and so on and so forth. But what was happening when I was doing that in my homeschool is that there was just a list a mile long of things that never got touched. And that was not helpful to anyone. And we were doing school late into the day just to try to check off my list. And that's when attitudes would turn sour. And that's when the fighting and the bickering and the whining and complaining would start. And so I was like, hold up, we've got to change something. And so I started time blocking instead. So for our homeschool day, what that looks like is an early morning block, a late morning block, then we have lunch and an afternoon block. Now I kind of time block the rest of our day too, but it's not as strict as our homeschool day is. And whatever time you decide to set, if you decide to try out time blocking and you want to say, okay, our first block is going to be from 8 to 10. At 10 o'clock, whatever things you wanted to accomplish in that 8 to 10 time frame, if they're not done by 10 o'clock, you just put a bookmark in it and say, we'll hit that again tomorrow. Or maybe later on in the day, you'll have more room in another block where you can say, hey, let's go back and revisit this. But at 10 o'clock, you move on to the next thing. And that's, like I said, really hard for me sometimes. But I find that it keeps my kids more engaged and more focused and keeps their attitudes a lot better when they know, okay, here's the finish line that we have to get to. And sometimes it makes them more motivated to kind of beat that timeline so that for the rest of the block, they can kind of have some free time or some wiggle room to breathe before we start our next chunk. So more specifically how that looks for us, just to give you kind of a concrete example, is we have an early morning block, and that's from about, I don't know, we kind of like wake up and get around and actually start our day about 8:30 after, breakfast and all that stuff is done. And that's when we prep our minds and our hearts and our bodies. So we do our Bible during this time. We do some sort of physical activity during this time, all of that kind of stuff to just kind of set us in the right path for the day. Then we have a later morning block, and that is when we do all of our independent work and our one-on-one work. So this is when I teach my preschooler because he kind of needs that first amount of energy from me in the day. And my older boys are working on their independent work. And then I take my older boys aside after preschool is over and I do any of their subjects that are more one-on-one with me. And those are typically their harder subjects anyway. Those are their math and their language arts. And so I want to get those done first for them while their brains are still fresh and sharp and their attitudes are still good. And then we have an hour that is kind of our lunch and recess hour where they eat, they either get outside and play or they can go play Legos or something for a little bit, just to kind of have that brain break. And then we have an afternoon block, which is just our group subjects. So that's when we fit in our history, our science, our read alouds, stuff like that. So of course that can look however you want it to, but really setting just chunks of time and saying, here's what we're working on for this chunk of time. If we get done early, we can have a little bit of free time or move on to the next thing if everyone's feeling good. But there's that end in sight, knowing that we're not going to be working on this one thing all day long. My second piece of advice is something I've always kind of done, but my friend Katie over at Life in the Mundane gave me the words for it. It's eat your frog first. I'd never heard of that, but I kind of like it. And so this just means do your hard things first. Those things that you are dreading, those things that you're just like, ugh, I can wait till tomorrow, that you're just putting off, get them done first. That can be that call to the dentist's office. That can be your workout. If you like to, work out and get your blood pumping, but you dread doing it, which I do a lot of times too, get it done first thing in the morning. If you're having a hard time getting in your word consistently, and you wouldn't say, oh, I'm dreading it, but I'm just having a hard time getting that practice, do it first. Get it checked off first thing in the day so that it's not just sitting here like, oh, I've got to get that done. Oh, I've got to get that done. But it is done. And of course, reading the word first just makes you feel better throughout the whole day anyway. So those are just very general examples for everyday life. But the way that I think of this more in homeschool specific terms is, if you have a kid that has a short attention span, get that kid over with first. If you know that they're going to be fading fast and checking out, work with them first. And so for me, that's the 3-year-old, because 3-year-olds naturally have a shorter attention span. If you have kiddos who really struggle in a subject, like I said earlier, we do our math and our language arts before lunch, for sure before lunch. Because if we do them later in the afternoon, my kids are just done. They're checked out. And so do those harder subjects first while their brains are fresh, and you can just feel that sense of relief once they're done so that you can move on and thoroughly enjoy those other subjects. And also if you have like a kiddo who's taking tests or assessments or anything, maybe consider moving those to the beginning part of the day. Now, if you have a kid who just struggles in the morning and does not have a happy heart till after lunch, then maybe this isn't the best advice for you. But in general, I find doing the hard things first makes the rest of your day a lot easier, because you don't have that nagging in the back of your head, oh, I still have to do. Oh, I still have to do. The hard stuff's already done. And if you're like me, things like calling the dentist and getting yucky, mundane stuff like that done, you just keep procrastinating and procrastinating because you don't want to do it. So if you just get it over with, then it's done. And my third and final tip would be to use, or to at least try, the file box system by Christy Clover. Now, I've talked to a lot of people who hated this, just being honest. For me and my family, it works amazingly. So here's just a brief glimpse of what that looks like. We have a crate that has the hanging file folders in it. And then within each of those folders, I put a little manila folder for each kid. And I cut apart their workbooks that they use, like their spelling and their math, and any worksheets or tests or whatever, I put them in the week that I know we're going to use them. So at the beginning of the year, I plan 36 weeks. And I don't always say, oh, we're doing this week then, this week then, this week then. They can be moved around as things come up and as we have vacations and holidays and stuff. But I know whatever week we're working on, I just have to grab that folder out, and there are all their worksheets for that day or for that week. And so then they just pull them out, hole punch them, put them in their binder. So all their worksheets for the week are in a binder and ready to go. So this not only is more practical for us, but it also saves a lot of time because we're not losing workbooks. We're not chasing down, oh, where did I put that last time? It takes a lot less space for us just to have everything all in one crate. And it saves a lot of time instead of flipping through the workbook every time thinking, where were we? It's already right there in the correct week. So you just pull it, put it in the binder. This also makes it super easy to take school on the go. So just grab a clipboard, grab your binder, grab a pencil, let's get out of here. So for us, even though it's hard at the beginning, like cutting all the bindings off, I take it to Staples and do that. And filing it all, that takes a day or two, and it's kind of annoying, but it makes the rest of my year go a lot smoother. So the long and short is there's no way to get it all done. No one does. No matter how good they look on Instagram, no one gets it all done. But learning little tips and tricks and using a little bit of trial and error can get us where we are a lot closer to getting it all done. Or maybe we just feel like we're carrying lighter loads. I don't know, but I do think it helps. So whether all of these tips are helpful to you or none of them were, make sure you check out the playlist down below because I really think you'll find something helpful in there to make your homeschool day more productive. So comment down below if you already do any of these tips and tricks that I shared with you. Be on the lookout for our next video, which is a thrift books unboxing, haul, whatever you want to call it, but you do not want to miss it. I thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.